Hey Future Millionaires, welcome back to the channel. It's so good to have you here with me again. I genuinely hope you're crushing it today, no matter where you are in this amazing world of ours. Today, we're diving deep into XRP, and I've got to kick things off with something that caught my eye from Crypto Rover. Now, he's saying that according to the traditional 4-year cycle, we should already be in a bear market. And honestly, that's the narrative everyone's pushing right now. But here's the thing, and this is where it gets really interesting. XRP hasn't even begun to show its true colors yet. I mean, look around. Does this feel like a bear market to you? Because I'm not seeing it. Here's what I think is actually happening. This cycle is completely different. The old 4-year pattern, it's breaking down right before our eyes. Some people are starting to wake up to this reality, but so many others are still stuck in the past, waiting for history to repeat itself exactly like before. And you know what I always say? History does repeat itself until it doesn't. And folks, I think we're living in one of those until it doesn't moments right now. All right, Future Millionaires, let me hit you with some eye-opening data that tells us exactly what's happening right now. XRP's Google Trends just dropped from a massive 98 back in November all the way down to 25 today. What does that tell us? Retail investors are getting completely shaken out of the market. And you know what? I think I know exactly why this is happening. It all comes down to one thing. People want everything now. They want the market to explode immediately, and when it doesn't happen on their timeline, they just lose interest and walk away. But here's where it gets really exciting, and this is the pattern we've seen over and over again. The market has this incredible way of bouncing back, and when it does, it happens fast. Like, blink and you'll miss it fast. And that's exactly when all those same people who just left start panicking to get back in. Just wait until retail FOMO kicks into high gear, and trust me, it's absolutely coming. All we need is for XRP to start breaking out of its current range, and the fear of missing out will be absolutely explosive. The energy will be unlike anything we've seen before. All right, I've got to share something brilliant that Bill Morgan just posted. And seriously, thanks to him for bringing this to our attention because it's huge. So check this out. He's showing us how Ripple's XRP sales are having this massive impact on the correlation between XRP and the other major cryptos. And when you look at the charts, it's crystal clear what he's talking about. You can literally see Bitcoin, XRP, Ethereum, and Solana all moving in almost identical patterns right now. Here's what's wild though. We're still following Bitcoin's lead, and most people have no clue this is even happening. All they're focused on is watching XRP's price drop and getting frustrated about it. But Future Millionaires, here's where this gets absolutely game-changing. Just imagine what happens when XRP finally breaks free from Bitcoin's influence. When we decouple from that correlation, the entire crypto landscape will be transformed forever. We're talking about a shift from pure speculation to actual real-world value. No more riding Bitcoin's coattails. XRP will move based on its own fundamentals, its own utility, its own incredible potential. And that day is coming closer than most people realize. Analysts say XRP bull run isn't over. $10 to $30 is still on the table. All right, Future Millionaires, now that we've got our first XRP ETF live and we can actually see how it's performing, the excitement is absolutely through the roof. I'm seeing tons of people out there saying there's absolutely no way XRP stays under $100 once all these ETFs start rolling out. And you know what? I get the enthusiasm, I really do. But here's my take. I think we need to pump the brakes just a little bit and see how this whole thing unfolds. We've got to watch what happens with the upcoming ETFs very carefully. The real question is, how fast is that institutional money going to flood in? And more importantly, does it keep flowing on day 2, day 3, and beyond? Because that sustained momentum is going to tell us everything we need to know about where this price is heading. That said, I'm still absolutely convinced we're on track to see XRP hit that $10 to $30 range during this cycle. And honestly, I'm seeing a lot of people who are completely convinced we'll be in double digits by the end of November, which is pretty incredible when you think about it. Here's what I'm really excited to watch. Let's see how this Canary Spot ETF moves XRP's price over the next few days. That's going to give us the perfect preview of what we can expect when the big players like Franklin Templeton launch their ETFs. It's going to be fascinating. $47 per XRP on the table in case of this mega squeeze. All right, Future Millionaires, let me break down something absolutely wild that's being discussed right now. It's called the Shane Ellis theory, and honestly, the numbers are mind-blowing. So get this, according to this theory, we could potentially see XRP hit $47 this week. Now, before you get too excited, let me explain how this would actually work. If we see a Shane Ellis-style squeeze on the exchanges and the ETFs start pulling in massive inflows, we're talking $10 billion, then they'd need to buy around $4 billion worth of XRP at today's prices. But here's the kicker. There's only about $3 billion worth of XRP sitting on exchanges right now. What Shane Ellis is saying is that all the available XRP would literally vanish from the exchanges. It's pure supply and demand economics at its most extreme. But here's the reality check, and this is important. They're not actually buying this XRP directly from exchanges. Most ETF purchases are happening over the counter, which doesn't immediately impact the price the same way. So here's what we actually need to see happen for this theory to play out. XRP needs to break out just enough. I'm talking about a solid push above $3 to get retail investors excited again. Once that happens, retail FOMO kicks in and they start gobbling up whatever XRP is left on the exchanges. If that sequence happens, we could see XRP's price absolutely rocket in a very short time. Will it happen though? Honestly, we're still in wait-and-see mode, and realistically, it's definitely not happening this week. But could it happen by the end of December? Maybe even late 2025? That's definitely in the realm of possibility. SBI to invest 30 billion yen in US Evernorth for cryptocurrency investment utilizing Ripple. Future millionaires, I've got some absolutely massive news that just dropped, and this is the kind of institutional movement we've been waiting for. So check this out. SBI Group just announced they're investing a whopping $200 million into Evernorth Holdings. Now, if you don't know Evernorth, they're a US company that specifically invests in and manages Ripple cryptocurrency. This investment is going to give SBI about 20% ownership in the company. That's huge. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Evernorth is planning to list on NASDAQ, which is absolutely massive for XRP exposure. And get this, they're also running a lending service where they actually lend out their XRP holdings to institutional investors and collect fees on it. Pretty smart business model, right? Now, here's why this matters so much. Financial institutions are facing these crazy regulatory hurdles when it comes to holding crypto directly. The regulations are complex, and there's always that price volatility risk they're worried about. So companies like Evernorth are basically solving that problem for them. And you know what's wild? Evernorth isn't just facilitating, they're actively acquiring XRP for their own treasury too. These treasury companies are still stacking XRP like crazy. What we're witnessing right now, future millionaires, are the early movers, the smart money, buying and holding XRP while they still can. But just wait until we get that massive institutional wave that's coming once proper regulations are locked in place. I'm telling you right now, scarcity is coming for this cryptocurrency, and it's coming fast. Expert R. Paul reveals crypto market outlook as government shutdown ends. All right, future millionaires, let me share what Ron Paul is saying about the current market situation. And this guy's insights are always worth paying attention to. So here's his take on what's happening right now. He's predicting that the crypto market is going to move in a pretty typical pattern as this government shutdown situation wraps up. But here's the interesting part. He thinks Bitcoin is actually going to dip below that massive 100K level, even after the government shutdown ends. And you know what? That's not necessarily bad news for us XRP holders, because it shows that even Bitcoin isn't immune to these broader economic pressures right now. But here's where things get really interesting. Ron Paul is also pointing out that Fed policymakers are completely torn about whether to cut rates in December. They're literally split down the middle on this decision, and that uncertainty is creating some serious ripple effects throughout the entire market. This kind of indecision from the Fed, it creates volatility, and volatility creates opportunity for those of us who understand what's really happening behind the scenes. So here's the thing, future millionaires. We honestly don't know if that December rate cut is going to happen or not, but Ron Paul is still super bullish on what's coming next. He's saying we're about to see a massive flood of liquidity hit this market, and that's when things get really exciting. He's still convinced that Bitcoin is gearing up for a major breakout, and when that happens, it's going to drag the entire crypto market up with it. That's just how these cycles work. Bitcoin leads, everything else follows. But here's where it gets absolutely wild. At some point, Bitcoin is going to hit its peak and start to level off, and that's exactly when all the other coins are going to go on an absolute tear. That's the moment we've all been waiting for, because that's when XRP is going to show its true potential. Now, here's what I think is actually going to happen, and this could be a game changer. These ETFs are going to start putting serious upward pressure on XRP's price. We're going to see more and more treasury companies being created, all of them buying up XRP and taking it out of circulation. And you know what happens next, right? As the price starts climbing, retail FOMO is going to kick into overdrive. People are going to panic buy because they don't want to miss out. The beautiful thing is, all of this could happen even before we see the real, massive breakout begin for XRP. We're talking about multiple catalysts working together. We're still keeping a close eye on what Bitcoin does from here, but Ron Paul remains convinced. That liquidity flood is coming, and it's coming soon. And future millionaires, you can literally see this playing out on the charts right now. Trump just ended the government shutdown, and here's what's absolutely incredible. The last time we had this exact same setup, Bitcoin went completely parabolic. I'm talking about an explosive move that caught everyone off guard. Now here's where it gets really exciting. XRP is sitting right in what I like to call the ignition zone, with ETFs and massive institutional capital quietly lining up behind the scenes. It's like watching a rocket getting fueled up before launch. So when people look at the last government shutdown resolution and see how Bitcoin absolutely tore through the market afterward, they're thinking the same explosive potential exists for XRP right now. But here's the thing, and this is where it gets even more incredible. We've got so many additional catalysts stacked on top of this setup. You know what drives me crazy? Everyone talks about altcoin season and throws out these XRP price predictions, but they completely ignore the massive catalysts that are building up behind this cryptocurrency. They don't factor in the coming scarcity. They don't consider all the institutional moves happening right now. They're missing the bigger picture entirely. Here's what they're not seeing. We are literally on the verge of getting regulatory clarity from the US government that's going to give every single institution out there the green light to dive headfirst into this space. That's not just another catalyst. That's the catalyst that changes everything forever. All right, future millionaires, I've got some interesting news from Axelar that XRP holders need to hear about. So XRP holders on the BNB chain just got a brand new way to potentially earn yield on their holdings. They've launched something called MXRP, and this is being marketed as the first liquid staking token for XRP. It's now live on ListDAO, and they're promising up to 10% APY through what they call transparent yield strategies, powered by Midas and Axelar. Now, I've got to say, I really like what Axelar has been doing in this space, but here's where I need to pump the brakes and ask the important question. Where exactly is this 10% APY coming from? Because that's always the million-dollar question, isn't it? I've been telling you this for a while now, and I'm going to keep saying it. When you see these high returns, 6%, 7%, 8%, and I've even seen some platforms promising 15% to 20% APY, you need to immediately ask yourself, where is this money actually coming from? Here's my honest take, future millionaires. Whenever you see APY numbers like this, there's significant risk involved. And I'm talking about the kind of risk where you could potentially lose your XRP entirely. If you're serious about earning yield on your XRP, here's my rule of thumb. Always look for APY rates of 5% or under. Anything above that threshold, the risk level shoots up dramatically. And trust me, protecting your XRP should always be your #1 priority. Future millionaires, I just got some absolutely incredible news that shows the power of our XRP community. Gemini just released their shareholder letter, and get this, the XRP credit card triggered such a massive surge in new users that it helped deliver their most profitable card quarter ever. And they're not stopping there. Gemini says they're planning to invest significant resources to maintain their first-mover advantage, with new XRP products they expect to announce very soon. This is huge. But you know what? This doesn't surprise me one bit, because look at our XRP community. It's absolutely unstoppable. Johnny Deaton pointed this out perfectly during the Ripple versus SEC case. He said we were 75,000 strong back then, but we were the strongest crypto community he'd ever seen. And now, we're even bigger and more passionate than ever. Whenever anything XRP-related drops, our community jumps on it immediately. It's that loyalty and enthusiasm that's driving so much retail demand for this cryptocurrency. Here's what I love seeing. New people come into crypto, hop on X, and ask, what should I invest in? Instantly, you'll have 30 or 40 XRP holders explaining why this is the investment they need to make. They break down how XRP is built to move the world's money, how it can transfer anything of value, and how it's positioned to eventually flip Bitcoin's market cap and become the #1 cryptocurrency. That's the beauty of being an XRP investor. We're not just holding, we're educating and building. And honestly, I see the same thing happening with HBAR and Stellar. These ISO cryptocurrency communities are getting stronger every day because people look at them and think, finally, a crypto that actually solves real-world problems. That's what you want in a cryptocurrency, something that actually does something meaningful. You don't want to be sitting there hoping it randomly pumps during a bull run, then holding for another 4 years wondering what's next. With XRP, it's completely different. You're holding it knowing the value will increase over time, but you're also getting ways to earn yield on it right now. Shop with it today, and even borrow against it. The utility is expanding constantly. Say whatever you want about XRP, but I know it's going to rise like a phoenix. It's just a matter of time until the BIS declares it a Tier 1 asset. And when that day comes, it's absolutely go time for XRP. But until then, future millionaires, stay patient, stay positive, and let's get rich together. That's going to wrap up today's video. Thank you all so much for watching. I genuinely appreciate each and every one of you. I'll see you in the next one, and have an amazing night.